Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome to Comic Book Radio, episode 79. This is an open lines show, so that means that you guys can also join. I'm your host, Peter Cimetti, of course. Now, I do have a topic I want to talk about tonight. I'm seeing a lot of this. On the interwebs. And, yeah. Now, I want to say this. Tonight's guest was going to be Mark Polton. He's not feeling that great. We're going to reschedule. I was going to be on Joe Sontag's show tomorrow. There's stuff going down with him. He wants to keep the matter private. And I saw he's requesting everyone's thoughts and prayers regarding the situation. I know what it is. Joe is personally, he's okay. But yes, please give your best to Joe. He's a good dude, and they're going through a tough time right now. So I'm not going to be on his show tomorrow. So get that out of the way. The other thing I want to get out of the way, too, is that for now, I'm not having Jim Shooter on the show. The topic of the show, the impossibility of Jim Shooter, is about the fact of what I'm seeing right now. I love hypothetical conversation. I love the theoretical stuff across the board. But what I'm seeing right now is people actually, and not just like people having the conversation in some capacity of whatever, but people actually believing that Jim Shooter or a Jim Shooter-esque kind of person could turn the mainstream comic industry around. Now, I'm gonna, and I have a lot of respect for Jim Shooter. This isn't going to be a show where I'm crapping on Jim Shooter. I'm not even really going to go into depths on Jim Shooter and talk about his history, his record, whatever it may be. I'm going to be talking about why it is absolutely impossible for a Jim Shooter type person or Jim Shooter himself to come in there and make the kinds of changes people think could happen. It's one thing to suggest that this is what needs to be done. I'm seeing a lot of talk of people in a serious kind of way really thinking that this is a possibility and that this should happen and that this could happen. And I'm seeing some people say things where they're thinking that some people could actually go in there and do what Jim Shooter did. And so for those that don't know what Jim Shooter did, I'm going to say hi to the chat in just a moment. Jim Shooter essentially he didn't clean house, but he cleaned up the house of Marvel in the late 70s to 87. I think it was 78 to 87, if I remember correctly. So there's a lot of things that happened, and through attrition, he kind of worked his way up because people were just fed up being in the position of editor-in-chief at Marvel. There was a lot of problems going on in the 70s. And then when Stan Lee went off to the West, they had him pursue the animation, developing film, TV, etc. division out in LA. Jim Shooter primarily took over as editor-in-chief of Marvel in the New York offices for the publishing division, for the comics. He helped the trains run on time, essentially. Butt heads with a lot of creators because of the way that he would go about things, but largely made a very positive impact on Marvel. Pretty much at the time, I don't want to be hyperbolic, but we'll just say he saved Marvel, right? But then he ended up kind of becoming like the mad tinkerer, it seems. You know, he hit it big with the Secret Wars stuff, and then company-wide crossover stuff was the norm after that, which is unfortunate because it kind of contradicted a lot of what Shooter had wanted and what he did, which was great to course correct what Marvel was doing, which was that whole kind of thing where you're treating every issue like it's somebody's first issue. So storytelling clarity is king. You get that episodic ongoing style that I've been talking about for a while. And that's how you organically build stories, build worlds, and you don't have anything kind of become encumbered by exactly what it did become encumbered with big events. Now it's funny because I've talked to some people today who believe that Shooter was responsible for things like he was editor-in-chief at the time when the Jim Lee X-Men became the highest selling comic of all time, or X-Force #1, or Todd McFarlane's Spider-Man #1. Rob Liefeld, of course, with X-Force #1. Jim Shooter wasn't there for a few years at that point. He was doing stuff with Valiant at that point in time. So there's a lot of stuff where people, I think, are having wires crossed, and I think we're having some kind of rose-colored nostalgia for Jim Shooter. Now, I'm not going to go, like I said, that's the most I want to go into Jim Shooter tonight specifically. I'm going to be talking about why right now the companies, the industry, the world, it's been 40 years almost. In some cases, depending on when you want to trace it back to, it's been over 40 years. Things have changed. And hoping that this kind of thing, you get somebody in there that's like Jim Shooter, that just like fires everybody and puts in all the best talent, and you know what I mean? It's oversimplifying what really, really needs to be done and what will never be done at these levels. It's far too gone. And it's not a negative of me to say this, because I'm not talking about the comic industry in whole, or the medium of comics is far too gone. The medium of comics is great. As far as I can see it right now, it's in a better place than it's been in a while, thanks to the independence out there and the decentralization of it all that's occurring, where people can tell the stories they want to tell if they're brave enough to do so. But as far as the corporate structure goes, it's vastly different now than it was 40 years ago. And everything else that's pulling the strings of that corporate structure. So before we start, which we already did, almost 10 minutes in, I want to say hello to you guys. Bear in the chat. What's up, Bear? What Geeks Do Network? And maybe I will get Jim Shooter on the show one day. That would be fun. That would be a fun conversation. But that's not in the cards right now. The Beam Pad, what's up? Thank you for being here tonight. Dr. Mask's Retro Elixir. Hey, Dr. Mask. And says he's loving the new Behemoth. Yeah, we got the Behemoth emoji running. So if you guys haven't yet, check it out. Grape Nuka-Cola, what's up? Thank you for being here tonight, too. Massive Panda is in the house. So is H is for Heretic. Aloise is here, too. What's up, Aloise? NXerd, how's it going? We got Razmain here. So is Michael Deach. What's up, Michael? Hope you're doing well. Manny Cornejo's here, too. Hey, Manny. Real Steel in the house, along with Gordon Goodbrother. We always enjoy seeing Gordon Goodbrother here. Al Nickerson is here as well. What's up, Al Nickerson? Let's see. Chris Salinas. What's up, Chris? Hope you're doing well. Bobo's here. Hey, what's up, Bobo? Spaceman in the house. Says, hey, Pete, listen to your show with Gary. Great show. Love Gary and the FNT crew. Well, thank you. Appreciate that. It was a good show. And I'm looking forward to the next time. Hopefully it's not, I think, 3 or 4 years, whatever it was. Everyone's busy. Everyone's up to something, It's tough to connect sometime. Levi, what's up, Levi? Hope you're doing good. We got Holy Hand Grenades in the chat. Hope you're doing good as well. And Manny, hopefully my quick little explanation helped. Let's see here. We got, let's see. And Jim Shooter's like 71 or 72 right now. I wouldn't want to put him in that position. Dear Lord. Let the man enjoy his life. All right, Mighty Magic. What's up, Mighty Magic? Muck is here. What's up, Muck? Jeremy Deal in the house as well. All right. Now let's see. A couple of you guys have said something in the chat, and I've got the link pinned to the top of the chat if you guys do want to join tonight and talk about this or something else that might be on your mind. Feel free to join the show. Let's see here. Razmane says the Jim Shooter hypothetical is a 35 to 65-year-old man problem. Or what corrects it to 45 to 65-year-old man problem. Interesting. Let's see. Dr. Mouse says editor isn't there to be your buddy. Yeah, and that's how they do their job, and they make sure that you do yours well. You know. Let's see. Al Nickerson says totally agree. Corporate-owned comics need a Jim Shooter, but yeah, the folks running things don't want to change things. Yeah. So that's the biggest thing. Is that we end up getting stuck in thinking it's still 1976, 77. And we're in a situation where a Jim Shooter could turn the ship around at Marvel. Marvel at that point largely being a comic book publisher. That's the main focus for the most part. Sure, they had licensing and everything else and doing that, but it was driven by the comics and the characters and the storytelling, right? And I would argue that we would see who's that at DC? Is it Jeanette Kahn? Is that who I'm thinking of? You need like a good cop, bad cop. You need like the bad cop of Jim Shooter and the good cop of Jeanette Kahn. But you need a different world to have the two of those existing in a capacity where something can get done. Whoever would have the unenviable task of cleaning up whatever company, it doesn't matter. Comics, not comics, doesn't matter. In modern day, after putting themselves into the position that whatever company doing the things that have been done at modern day Marvel, DC, whatever it is, pick a company, any company, right? It's like the what is that? The Starship song. You know, someone's always changing corporation names. You know. So that's all it is. It's just the same crap. So the answer isn't how do we fix these big gigantic corporations, or I should say the smaller subdivisions of big gigantic corporations, mega conglomerates, who, let's face it, have become bloated legal monopolies in many ways. That's not the question. And that shouldn't be something that we're all wondering how can we make sure, you know. And I get it, the emotion is there. People care about the characters, they care about the comics, they wish it could be fixed, they wish it could be better. I get all that. The system is broken. You could fix the company, it doesn't matter. Distribution's broken. You could fix distribution, it doesn't matter. The retail level of it is broken. You could fix the retail level, it doesn't matter. The stories are still broken. Every facet of it has been precisely, surgically broken down for years. This isn't like there's just, you know, you come in there and you get someone to talk tough and run the company like a company, you know, and have like benchmarks and thresholds and all that kind of stuff. Cancel the books that don't sell, reward the creators that are doing good, and, you know, all that. That's not a motive. People that think like this is a motive at this point, like, oh, the stories and the profits and the sales and catering to readers, and if all of those were motives, we wouldn't be in the situation that we're in. So it's very clear. The only reason that any of this exists the way it does is because people in positions of power want it to be this way. And I don't even mean the people that are running whatever company. These companies, it's like there's so many layers and levels to it. And then there's other people who are controlling them that you don't even know about through various investment firms, various things like ESG, etc., all over the place that help bring financing to these companies. that you're it's like Office Space, right? When that dude has like 7 bosses, right? These people have like 7 bosses, and half of them they don't even know. So getting in like a Jim Shooter or whoever, or a Jim Shooter-esque person to fire all the hacks and the whatever and the people who were doing bad and cancel all the books that aren't selling, consolidate the line, like all these theoreticals, we can talk about them in a capacity where you're going, oh, okay, well, yeah, if that were to happen, maybe it would course correct, and you could bring in the talent, make good stories again and all that. Okay, I like to have that theoretical conversation. It's fun. Of like, man, imagine if they cared about the stuff they should care about and how they would run it. That's a fun conversation. But I'm seeing people talk about it in such a serious way that, like, this is the way. We just got to get this kind of person there and let them know. No. This is on purpose. This is all on purpose. That's the most obvious answer. Let's face it, right? There's nothing revelatory about that. Get somebody in there who wants people to do their jobs and then make good things. That's as obvious as you could get, right? So if that's obvious and they're not doing the obvious, they are unbelievably refusing to do the obvious, then it is obvious that the motive is something else. The motive is not what normal people would think of when they're thinking of comic books and a business and, entertainment and escapism and storytelling. None of the things that would be obvious and normal and rational to the average person are being considered here as priorities. And that has to be understood. If that is not understood, then you have no idea what the situation is. And then past that point, if you don't understand the levels that are in play here, then it's more fantastical than the comics themselves then. The comics are more realistic than the scenario that is being presented as a solution, because it's so delusional at that point to push it that that's the solution, that's the fix, that all they need is that one thing. This isn't even like a sports team that is struggling to attract a crowd, struggling to win, and you're like, man, if they could only get talent. Okay, so let's view it at that, right? If it's a sports team, right? How do you attract talent to your sports team? Well, location helps. That's always a big one that athletes consider. Pay is a big one that they consider. And then you're talking about, what are your chances to become a champion? Are you going to be treated in the capacity role in which you want to be? Or are you going to be playing for nothing on a crappy team? Right? So usually a lot of crappy teams will build up talent through the farm system. Because they can't force you to be on the team. They can't trade away or sign a player who doesn't want to be signed unless they draft you, right? And we don't have drafts in the comic industry where we have like draft day. That'd be kind of funny though, right? We have draft day, and then various companies are in the draft lottery and we're picking new talent, and they have to work for us with entry-level contracts and et cetera, right? And we don't have that. It'd be interesting if we did. But that's how in sports teams you're essentially able to twist the arm of someone who's maybe like, oh, man, I got drafted by that team. Okay. And they're going to try to make the best of it, hoping that by the time it's contract negotiation time, they played their butt off and they can score a bigger contract for a better team and whatever. Right, so that's generally how that would work in some capacity. Now, thinking of the comic entertainment industry in that capacity, you don't have those kinds of things. Okay, so you're thinking, okay, how do we lure customers and audience? How do we give them a good product? How do we have creators who want to be here? How do we do all the different things that need to be done, right? Well, that would be assuming that those are motives. Those aren't motives. Those are clearly not motives. It's been over, what, 15 years of showing time and time again that that's not really a motive. Now, it's a motive in some way when you look at their merchandising department and when you look at their film division. I use that loosely, but obviously, like, they do want to do well. They're putting a lot of money and effort into those divisions, you know, and I count like video games, streaming, etc. Because I had posited the fact that, well, people should, in those positions, realize that it would actually be beneficial to the companies and to the comics industry as a whole if the bigger companies acknowledge, what are we here for? We're here to be entertainment media companies. We already have a massive backlog of stories and characters. So we're not in a rush to create, right? Even though I've heard people, and very intelligent people too, use this painful argument that you need the comics. You need new comics constantly being made to provide stories for the streaming and the video games and the movies and the yada yada, you know? No, you don't. Holy cow, you don't. I don't understand how some of these people can honestly say that, because it's provably false. You know, you can look at things like, okay, who is the most popular character on Walking Dead? A character that wasn't in the comics. Who's one of the most popular characters that ever came into the Batman universe that wasn't in the comics that was made for the Batman animated series show? Harley Quinn. Right? So they came up with something on those shows using what was previously there. And even the Batman the Animated Series show, a lot of the characters were conglomerates of different versions. Like Clayface was like a conglomerate of a couple different versions of that character. And even the personalities of various characters, like Mr. Freeze turned into a heavy hitter with pathos and unbelievable characterization on that show. Mostly in the comics, it's kind of just like B or C list. It's a gimmick villain, you know, for the most part. You know, so you had a whole lot of different things done in that capacity. And people look at that and they turn to it and they go, well, you need the comics, you need the new... You don't need the new material. First of all, you don't need the new material. You got like 70 to 80 years of material to mine. Lord knows how many characters and stories. They're already there. But even if you wanted something new, these are companies that could just hire these writers that would have been doing something, hire whoever they think is the best of the best, you know, and then they can pretty much come up with characters and stories for the various things and hire them for that. And you don't have to go through the messy aspect of like royalties involved and rights usage and what. This is a team that's paid to do what they're doing. And you're just adapting the whole time. And again, even that is relatively an archaic concept with the way things are moving. So when I'm seeing people that are like really talking about the aspect of that, it really confuses me. And maybe that's my shortcoming. I'm going to take a look at the chat and see what you guys are doing. Let's see. Mighty Magic says it'd be cool to see an interview with Jim Shooter. I would love to. I would love to have a conversation with him. Maybe one day, right? You never know. Ben Soto says the problem goes deeper than editorial. Yes. Marvel's owned by Disney, and BlackRock has its claws in Disney. BlackRock is pushing ESG, so there's financial incentive for Disney to stay woke. Yeah, to stay however the narrative that they want to push. And the narrative that's being pushed is being pushed at a level to break down not just society and divide people, but if you notice, everything is a distraction from the true goal. And the true goal, if you pay attention to it, is about manipulation of language. And if you don't think that that really means anything, because you can have like, I don't know, whatever. This is tape. Or is it tape? This is tape, or this is Magglebong. This is Magglebong. There's a lot of different words, different languages that call this what this is, right? But if you say that this is a human, this tape is a human, still talking about this, still talking about what this is, but I'm changing language. And once you start changing language, you start changing legal precedent. Use the wrong words in a court of law, it gets messy real quick. Put the wrong kind of words in legal documents and into law, gets real bad real fast. That's the actual whole thing. If you see everything, it has nothing to do with caring about this issue or this person or that person or whatever. It has nothing to do with it. It has everything to do with the manipulation of language. Because then you have control, and then you have everything. You know, you go back and you tweak this, you tweak that, you change that concept, you move this around. It's like this weird little Rubik's Cube with a bunch of words on it to try to make them mean something else and represent something else. We're still talking about the same thing. But are we really talking about the same thing? Because now I use a different word for it. And we see that across the board. And this kind of thing has been happening in human history between power dynamics for as long as ever. It's nothing new. It's not like a modern day thing. Language is ever evolving. It's just we're seeing things being turned upside down. And the movement coming clearly from the top. So it's the same concept here. Now, when you think about why do they want to own companies like this, storytelling, movies, books, comics, etc., cultural aspects, right? That's everything. That's everything. Once you break that down, once you manage to control that, it's everything. And how do you do that? How do you manipulate that? How do you push that idea further? You manipulate the language. You control the language. Well, you see, actually, this means that now. So all of a sudden now you're looking around and going, I don't even know what the hell to say. I don't know what I could write. What's okay to write? What's not okay to write? What words can I use? What words can't I use? What words can get me in unbelievable trouble? Context is removed. So we see that time and time again. And that's all this stuff. That's all it's about. That's all it boils back down to. But that's why, you know, it's an oversimplification. I wish we could get back to the day and age of, yeah, let's just get good people in there. Make something good. We see that happen on an independent level when you're not beholden to various corporations or investment firms or whatever it may be. You see that happen all the time where people can go, oh, we'll just make something as best as we can. It's a simpler process. But once you get to the ridiculous process that it's become, it's nightmarish. It's not as simple as get somebody in there and then, you know, they talk tough, they run the business like it should be, and they make something good. And they make sure everybody else is making something good. It's not as simple as that. I wish it was. Cole King, what's up, Cole? And also, I want to give thanks again, Spicer McLeroy. Man, you are unbelievable with your 20 memberships again. Holy smokes, man. And then, yes, Levi, do we want to see these companies saved? Right? They're beyond saving in the capacity that I think people are really talking about it. It's beyond that. You know, for those companies to technically be saved, because then some people go, okay, so why are they still making comics? They're still making comics because it's still, for now, a viable entryway for people to compete on the level at which they dominate. So what I mean by that is this. If you're, and this again has been done since the start of big corporations, probably the start of, you know, going back even further. So they'll buy up shelf space. It's about making the product as many as you can for as cheap as you can. I mean, if this rings true to you, let me know. most of the products being made as cheaply as possible, as many as possible, and put in a bottleneck situation so that it floods the market, so that it's difficult for others to wiggle their way in there and maybe have the same level of growth, potential success, etc. needed to become a competitor where it really matters. So the competition isn't like, oh, making sure that the other comics don't sell, eating up the market share in the comic space so that they basically have a stranglehold on the comic book market. That's not what that is. That's fairly easy to do. I mean, they have the pockets for it. It's about making sure that there's not another Ninja Turtles. There's not another Walking Dead. There's not another Invincible. There's not another, whatever the hell else that you want to sit and point at that's outside of the established system at this point. That's the whole point. That's the point. They don't want to see something turn into an awesome video game or a very popular film or a great TV show or whatever, because now you're competing with them. Now that's where it hurts. Now that's what makes them scared. Because they do, at the end of the day, still need money from other things. But at the ground level within the comic industry, it's largely they just go in there. They don't care about the comics. It's obvious at this point. Obvious. Maybe 5% of the comics being made that are putting out there show some level of like, oh, I guess they're trying. Most of it isn't that. And most of the creators that come across, if you don't like the book or if you don't want to buy a book, man, it's been this way for years. For years. So getting somebody to come in there, man, they would be run out of town. You put Jim Shooter in there today in any position at any of these companies, and he does what he did back then, the next day, maybe even the same day, that dude is going to get run through the mud on social media. His life is going to get turned upside down. He's going to get called some of the worst things in the world, and he's going to be dropped like a bad habit. That's not going to happen. And if it was going to happen, it would have happened already. Let's see here. Jeanette was at DC. Yeah, Jeanette was at DC. Let's see here. Yeah, and that's the thing. Cleaning house would be just... That would be... The best thing for them would just be to stop largely with the new comics. Let the... If they want a healthy comic industry, let the rest of the comic industry grow into those spaces. And their time with making the new comics and everything else, it's very clear it's done. That's not the motive anymore. But again, we're not talking about it being run like a proper business. We're not talking about the industry being run like a proper industry. And you could also have the best books ever being made right now. It doesn't matter. Distribution sucks. The distribution footprint is abominable. It's horrible. And then the retail setup, you get maybe 10% of the comic shops that are like these great stores where you could go in there and find something. Or you feel, this is a great store and they appreciate your patronage. It's across the board. There are issues across the board. Because I remember there was something with Jim Shooter where he was talking about something, I believe this was maybe the late 90s, early 2000s, where people were kind of blaming distribution, and he was talking about the problem isn't distribution, the problem's the bad comics. Well, yeah, I mean, that's first and foremost. It starts with that, right? But now we're really in a situation where you could say, well, the distribution is not that great either. So you got pretty bad comics, pretty bad distribution, broken systems across the board, purposefully so, obviously so. Of course, the comics aren't dying. They're not gonna die. So when people go like, "Oh, comics are dying," I mean, no, comics are thriving. It just depends where you look. I had a conversation with somebody today where they were telling me that what I was saying was the stupidest thing they ever heard. Because manga is booming. I was tempted to say you should reread what you wrote. That might be the stupidest thing you ever heard. Manga's booming, so that means that the big two are doing good. It's just like, what? If anything, as soon as the wheels fall off of whatever's going on with the superhero movies or whatever else, as soon as the wheels fall off with that, we're already seeing it. Manga is posed to just become live action adaptations. And that's some serious audience. And then what? So it's one of those things where I look at it and I go, well, manga is a totally different animal. Manga is lapping the American comics industry. And then especially if you want to isolate and have like book on book, series on series, company to company, And now obviously, I'm a small little dude in a big gigantic pond. I get it. But if I can see that, I'm struggling to wonder when I see some people who are very intelligent in this industry. And I don't know if it's like a self-preservation thing, if it's a defense mechanism, if it's fear speaking out about seeing your days numbered or whatever it may be. But it should be the opposite. It should be the opposite because you should be looking at it and going, if the corporate industry doesn't become an industry where it's viable for me to be there, and I have great ideas, a work ethic, and I know how to run a business, you should be looking at it and going, now's the time for me to be independent. Why the hell do I want to go to the corporation? Why the hell do I want to take my stuff to them? So it makes no sense to me. Don't be scared. It's not the time to be scared about some alleged lack of opportunity or whatever it may be. Now's the time to actually look at that and go, you know what, let them do what they're going to do. And I'm going to get my stuff out there direct to the people and make what I want to make, not be beholden to crazy town corporations and all the madness therein, and maybe change the system from the outside, because that's the only thing you can ever really do. You can't change the system from within. You have to, and they know this, the other side, and that's why they're doing what they're doing. They didn't change the system from within. They changed the system outside of it, and then slowly gobbled up everything that they could. They created a separate system and then annexed whatever they could. And slowly but surely they did. And there's a million other reasons why they were able to. That's difficult for the average person to do it. But it's not difficult for the average person to create something. It's not difficult for the average person to use the opportunities before them. That's not difficult. People are doing it every day. Thousands of people, millions of people are doing it every day in some capacity. If we go outside the scope of comics or whatever, millions of people every day are doing it, are taking advantage of that and realizing like, yeah, maybe I don't need the traditional corporate path on that level. That's why this whole the entertainment strike is insane too, with everything else. Why don't you guys just get together and set up something? You hate the corporate greed because you're not a part of it, but once you're a part of it, you love it. That's odd, to put it kindly. Why don't you create your own studio? Why don't you do your own thing? Why don't you go independent? Why don't you do as much as you can and decentralize the whole thing? Because that's what's creating the problem. That's what's creating the corruption. That's what's creating the greed. That's creating the power dynamic and the studio system and everything else that's catering to that. That's what's creating the whole power structure that you have a problem with. But you're like, well, as long as they pay me more, then it's not so bad. Okay, so then don't pose it as a morality thing, because it's not about morality. It's far from. It's just about money. All right, it's just about money. You're fine with being a sellout. Like, at least be honest. That's fine. I get it. But like when you're posing it as this virtuous thing, man, that's just odd. That's just odd. Why? Why would you do that? Because we know as soon as the deal's made, it's like, oh yeah, well, I'm happy to be here. This is great. But you just said that they were awful. Oh no, that was before they paid me more. Now they're great. Now this is awesome. Very strange. Very strange. Let's see here. Razmain, and I see you there, Al, backstage. But I saw you were having some problems with stuff too. So hopefully you're fine now. I'll bring you on in a second if you are. Razmain says the mainstream comic industry was a grift day one. That's why indie creators are constantly being called grifters. Projection. Look at that. Squall Shade says, I met Jim Shooter at a gaming convention. Cool guy. Yeah, he seems like a cool guy. He seems like a good guy, He had a job to do. He did his job, and especially at this point, like I said, he's like 71 or 72. People that want to see him come back, I mean, even if he wanted to come back, I'd be like, why would you want to do that, man? Why would you want to do that? Just work. And I mean, he's already kind of done this in some way, shape, or form with various companies. You had Valiant, Defiant, things like that. But, he's already... Just go independent. Marvel's unfixable. DC's unfixable. They're the way that they want to be. They're perfectly fine. Let's get that right now, okay? They're not broken. As far as they're concerned, they're not broken. They're working exactly the way they're intended to work. That's why they're not looking for a fix. They're not looking to change anything. They're not looking to right the ship or whatever it is, or whoever is there that's in charge of whatever aspect of anything wants it to be that way. So it's people that have to make peace with understanding that. And I'm not going to say that people have to, but it would be probably in their benefit to do so as much as they could. Jeremy wants, yeah, Pete, I'm going to need that TPS report. Jeremy's getting all Lumberg on me. Dr. Mask says, I overheard a creator who works for Marvel say that each editor is in charge of twice as many titles as it used to be, and they have to share assistant editors. That's definitely true. I mean, that's how it was with before I left Diamond. Last 3 years of Diamond. Brand managers were managing like 2 to 3 times the accounts. And I don't mean like 2 or 3 accounts. I mean like before they would manage maybe 6. And now they had to manage like almost 20. And needless to say, the experience was horrible. They don't know who you are. They don't care who the hell you are. They don't have any idea about what to do with they just want the stupid solicit and just get it in time, okay? Because they can't be bothered with anything else. Like I said, it's broken. But in many ways, if it was supposed to, it's like the problems of the world. If there were people out there in charge that didn't want things to be a certain way, they wouldn't be a certain way. They're a certain way because people in charge want it that way. That's just how it is. Fritzy says, Shooter's Marvel was the last time I cared about Marvel, but it wasn't perfect. Just a lot better than today's Marvel. Yeah, that's true. All right, so I do have 2 people waiting in the back here. I'm going to bring them on. And that's the thing. I'm not trying to be, as one person said, defeatist or anything like that. If anything, I'm quite the opposite. I think it's a positive if both of those bigger companies pretty much got out of that space and pursued the path that they're better suited for, that they were purchased for. Like, they weren't purchased to be comic book companies. They're purchased for the IP, the intellectual property, and the catalog and the licensing and the this and that and everything that's associated with it. So focus on that. People that want to make comics, let them make comics. But it can. Yeah, I am way back in the chat. There's a lot of people that are commenting, and I appreciate the chat. Hope you guys are at least talking amongst yourselves. But if you want me to answer, you have something specific, I got the YouTube chat open on the side. Tag me, it'll stand out. So and be persistent. Don't worry about it. You're not bugging me. You might bug some people in the chat, but you're not bugging me. All right, Al. What's up, Al?
All right, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, so I totally agree with you. I think everything you're saying is very true. And it's just weird because in the 1980s, when I was in college and high school, I was a huge fan of Marvel and DC. And I started working in comics in 1994. In those days, like a lot of the indie guys were like wishing that Marvel and DC would crash and burn. But now a lot of the indie guys now, like, they don't see this as a wonderful opportunity, as like what you were saying.
Yeah, it's strange.
And and a lot of these guys, a lot of the new indie guys, seem like they want to fix Marvel and DC. Maybe perhaps because they want to work for them, but there's no working for these people. So this is a wonderful opportunity for indie comic book creators, create their own properties to actually flourish. So why don't they just grab this opportunity to make their own books? Like, I don't care what happens.
That's a good question.
Yeah. It's like a lot of the new indie guys, some of them are still like fanboys, and they just got to get over it because these are not the same characters that I knew and enjoyed when I was a kid. Like those characters, the X-Men, Spider-Man, whatever, they're long gone. They're dead. So yeah, if you want to make indie comics now, you can. Because I distribute directly to my readers. I distribute through Diamond, ChristianBook.com. I work directly with comic book stores, and it's great.
You've got multiple avenues. It's amazing right now.
It
is better than ever before.
So why is everybody complaining so much?
It's not. I'd get the complaints and the panic more if there weren't any of those options, right? If it was literally just you can only work for Marvel or DC, and that's it. There's nothing else. You can't even start up a company. You can't do anything. You can't make your own books. Like, you're not allowed. Like, we live in a crazy, crazy world, crazier than now. So it's like if you only were, but if anything, like that's the strange part, is that by people constantly trying to champion the mega conglomerate, centralized, monopolistic corporation, which is, it's not capitalistic. People think that kind of stuff, well, it's capitalism for you. And that's not capitalism at all. That's the corruption of capitalism. That's corporatism. It has nothing to do with that. And if anything, you can make a strong argument that we haven't had capitalism since like 10? We've had a weird conglomerated bastardization of some kind of weird communism, fascism, capitalism, all mixed into like this weird corrupted ooze. We haven't had any kind of a free market kind of thing going on for a long time. So when you're talking about stuff like this, it really it makes me feel like, what are you doing in terms of wanting to ensure a healthier mega conglomerate, as opposed to taking the opportunity and going, man, I got all these opportunities right now with avenues of sale. I can create whatever I want, and as long as I'm not spineless about it, I could tell the stories I want to tell. And hopefully I'm able to pursue that as best as I can, find an audience, and the audience can find me. And because now we also have ways that you can market. So it's not even ways that you could produce it or sell it. There's also now ways better than ever before to market it, which was a huge hurdle for the independent creator for years. So that whole concept of like, oh, well, we have to have a very healthy DC and Marvel, otherwise all of comics is gone.
No.
Screw that. What the hell is that about?
Absolutely. Yeah, just go around the gatekeepers, be independent like what you're doing, and you get more of the profits. Like,
yeah.
I can never work with an editor. I can't work with a publisher. The distributors are fine, but they always want the new big thing. Like, that's the problem I saw with Diamond. And I think you're right. Like, these companies, Marvel and DC, these corporate-owned companies, they don't think that they're doing is wrong. and they don't want to be
Exactly.
fixed. And they're reading from the script by the people that control them. And stop giving them your money. That's another thing I see a lot of these guys do.
Yeah, there's a ton of companies that are independent right now and creators as well that are doing exactly what it is I see people wish Marvel and DC would do.
Mm.
Well, support them. Support the people that are doing it the right way.
Right, I agree.
And if anything, if at all there is even a semblance of running it like a proper business, by more people supporting what they believe is being done in the right way, that's what causes a change at these corporations. If there's still even a semblance of that within it. So if it's all about, oh please, it's the same thing we see it in politics and government. Oh please, people in power, can you please change if we give you more power? like what? We'll empower you further. If you do the things I want you to do and make them right this time, they could have done it the whole entire time. Why are you empowering them even further?
Well, they don't care about you.
It's like, yeah, you don't have to have other people bestow power upon you. Like you're not the friggin' Silver Surfer and they're Galactus giving you the the power cosmic here. You can actually go and do things. You can make things achievable. You can make a difference in the world. You can help your fellow man. You can help your family. You can help yourself. You can do all these various things. You can create. You don't have to have someone give you the power to do all of this various stuff. At least not. I mean, let's try to use that as much as we can before, God forbid, it ever is fully taken away from us. But that's the thing, is that you have people that are actually out there doing this kind of stuff every day. And then you have people that come along and go, you can't really make anything anyone wants to buy unless it's a big company that makes it. That sounds like a you problem.
I agree, and I think a lot of people like that want to work in comics or want to work in prose. They're conditioned to in a certain way. I had somebody who wants to be a writer, and she's looking to find an agent and a publisher. And I'm like, there's so many opportunities for you now, just to go, write your work, send it directly to your audience. Go on Kindle, go on Amazon. You don't need a publisher to take 90% of your profits. You don't really need an agent unless you're working in Hollywood. So bypass all these people, bypass all the gatekeepers, do what you want to do, but be a smart business person and don't sign any dumb contracts. So, yeah, I think that's my advice on all that stuff.
Yeah. It's regular, rational, solid advice.
But again, I think a lot of people are conditioned that this is the way it should be.
Yes.
If you're an independent creator and you want to do a self-published book or create your own book, Marvel and DC are taking up all the shelves if you want to work through the direct market. So if they're thriving, where's the room on the shelf for your stuff?
Exactly.
So anyway, thank you for letting me rant, Peter. I really do appreciate it.
No problem at all. Thank you, Al. Appreciate you coming on the show, man.
All right, thanks,
Thank you.
man. God bless you.
God bless you as well, man.
All right, bye.
And let's see, we got another person here patiently waiting in the background. What's up, Rob? Thank you for being here tonight, man.
Hey, Pete, how's it going?
It's going good. How are you?
Good,
Hey,
good.
you got a little kitty there in the background.
Oh, yeah, that's my Kal-El cat, named after Superman. So yeah, I just want to say, I was listening to you guys, and I think it's the takeover starts with pop culture and everything, and I think that I totally agree with everything with what Nick was saying, and it is time for the indies and the Iron Age, and with technology and everything, you can speak directly to your customers and cut out the middleman. And I think that's great. You've been doing it a long time. I have such a high respect for you. It's an honor to be on your show. And
thank you, man. Thank you for the kind words. Appreciate that.
I watch your show, every night that you're on as much as I can. I rush home just to get,
no way.
Yeah, rush home from work just to try to catch your show fully.
I hope I'm always making something that lives up to that excitement, man. Thank you.
You are. Thank you. And I appreciate that. And the one thing that differentiates you from all the other indies is I love the conspiracy side. I love that, that's the one thing I could relate to because that's something I got into when I was younger.
Everything's connected, man.
It's all
Everything is
connected.
connected.
And we're talking about the pop culture, and that's where it starts. Is they come and they take over through pop culture, and that's how they get into the people's minds, because it's entertainment and ESG scores and things of that nature.
Yeah, and the more you break down the family structure, the more you break down communities and friendships, the more people rely upon pop culture to turn to.
Totally agree. And I see that, and I think it's great now with technology and how you could go directly to the customer. And I love everything that's going on with Comicsgate and the indies and the Iron Age and everything. I had a few questions I just wanted to ask you about. Like, have you paid attention to, like, do you know about like the Saturnian religion and things of that nature?
What was that last thing? I didn't catch that. What'd
I
you
said,
say?
are you aware of like the Saturnian following and things of that
Oh,
nature
yeah,
and
yeah.
symbolism?
Yep.
I figured you were. But did you see what happened with the Burning Man this year, and
Yeah.
how they brought out the sculpture, the Ukrainian sculpture, and the phoenix
Yep.
rising from the ashes? Did you catch all that?
Yeah, it's like what they did with the Olympics years back. That was
Yeah.
like this big looming black thing with all like the syringes and the weird medical outfit stuff. Like, it's like, what the heck is that? You know? And they document their punches. They telegraph it. It's how they. This is the theory anyway. It's how they avoid karmic retribution.
Yes.
You know, by basically being like, we're gonna pretty much do what you see here.
Yes. And
So we're not like sneaking it upon you.
Yes, they're showing you exactly what they're doing. And they brought out this sculpture of a phoenix rising from the ashes. And it's also held at Black Rock in the desert. And I don't know if you know or if you're into weather manipulation and things of that nature. But the rain downfall and everything, and how the Burning Man was prolonged till Labor Day, which has to do with fire and water and all those things. And I was just curious if you knew, or if you caught any of that stuff and all the symbolism with Ukraine and
Oh yeah, I thought it was a hell of a coincidence.
Yeah, pretty coincidental. That was my first question. I figured you knew about that, but also my second question was, how do you feel about Elon Musk and X and things like that? People look at Elon Musk as this free speech guy. He took over Twitter, but I mean, the whole X thing, I mean, X is a symbol. You have Xfinity, you have Xbox.
The X is everywhere right now.
The cube, like
even that stupid what is that, like Latinx, whatever the heck that, everything is X.
It's all connected.
Yeah.
And with him taking over Twitter, which I'm on, every day, and making it X and having that same symbol and the black box and Black Rock and how all that stuff coincides. I was wondering what your opinion was on that. Like Elon Musk wanting to put computer chips in your head and being shown at award ceremonies wearing the Baphomet. And do you agree that this is a facade?
Man, Elon drives me nuts.
Yeah.
Boy, oh boy. And he's constantly always playing like, well, AI could really destroy all of humanity. Here's some more AI.
Yeah.
Like he's constantly doing that.
I would like to say that's not connected to the comic book side of things, but I believe it is. And I believe
no, it's totally connected. Everything is only a degree or two away from everything else.
It really is.
Yeah. So with that, man, there's, how do I say all these different things without becoming a target? To me, it was very clear that Elon could have made his own social media for very cheap, considering what he spent. Now, obviously not cheap to me or you, but let's say he spent 40 million instead of 40 billion, right? But then he wouldn't have access to an immediate database of people, servers, and then all the stuff that he wanted to get access to. Like that was all the money paid for. And then there were people that, like, he didn't just pay for. There's investors and stuff involved too. And I wonder among them how much they're interested in the potential information that he was able to gather from that purchase.
Yeah.
But on top of it, man, Twitter. Every day I have like a fight with, is today the day I delete this?
Yeah.
And not like, you know, and not like YouTube is perfect. YouTube is far from perfect.
Mm-hmm.
But I look at the upsides and the downsides of all of these social media platforms. YouTube for me, for right now, has been the most positive. You know, getting to have more contextual conversations and things like that with people. It's a greater sense of community, a greater sense of interaction. I love that aspect of it. Twitter is kind of like you're the away team always trying to convince the home team's crowd that you're the home team.
Yeah.
It's just it feels like you're ice skating uphill, and it feels like at any moment someone will come along to say something absolutely crazy to you.
Yeah. To
So
say it's like free speech, you know, like I'm still seeing a lot of people banned, you know, when they actually take that step too far. And I don't know. I think it's the same game with a different face.
Yeah, I at first with Elon, I was like, okay, you know, we'll see what this guy does. Then I'm like, yeah, you don't become that rich and powerful just cause. No. They don't let you. They just don't. They don't let you. You know, so it's like, well, then I look into it and I'm like, oh, all that stuff that he's doing looks like a great way to cover up stuff so it gets around to FOIA.
Yeah, and he looks like a hero, and it's like, oh, free speech, but...
And like, hey, look, we launched a rocket that like blew up sort of shortly after. Isn't that a success?
Yeah,
it's
right.
like, dude, they've been putting rockets in space without blowing up for a while.
Yeah, I think it's just all connected.
But
I think
yeah,
it's a global takeover on levels that we actually can't even comprehend at this moment.
yeah, and then the Neuralink thing is like, wow, man. If that was a localized treatment, like the way like a pacemaker would be, or a joint replacement, or you know, any kind of localized surgery, I would be like, that's a miracle for people.
Yeah.
But I'm like, you know, this is the perfect setup to speak out against it, and because it's going to create this incomprehensible surveillance state.
Yes.
And you speak out and you're like, what are you, a horrible human being? You want people to not be able to walk, or, you know, you want them to be incapacitated for the rest of their life? You know, it's like, no, I don't want that. Personally speaking, for me, if I was like a quadriplegic, which is who they want to do human trials with right now, quadriplegics and paraplegics, if I was in that state, I would honestly just be like, just put me out. Just put me out. I don't want that. I don't want to be a part of that. I don't want to be a part of what led to being a part of that. I can't even imagine the amount of animal testing. Yeah. You know, let's just snap this thing's neck and put this thing, oh, it doesn't work. Oh, well, whatever. And they don't just do it to like rats or whatever. I don't think people are aware of the amount of animal experimentation that occurs to cats, dogs, horses, monkeys, et cetera, go down the scope.
I wonder what kind of human experimentation is going on.
And then the private, side of the human experimentation, you know that kind of thing is occurring before they get to the human clinical trial. Voluntary aspect of it. I mean, you could look at like there's commercials for like the most basic thing like psoriasis or eczema or whatever, and half the time the one of the side effects is death.
Yeah,
that means like someone died because they had this pretty, you know, like eczema. They were like, that's acceptable. We'll put that out to market.
Yeah, and it never stops too. Every time I turn on anything mainstream, they're just telling you you're sick. Constantly, you're sick. There's something wrong with you.
Yeah,
you keep telling people they're sick, they're going to be sick. You know?
Yeah, it's the placebo effect. Yeah, absolutely.
And I totally believe in that.
And it's absolutely true. The placebo effect. You'll get people that just through the power of thinking that this thing will cure them, it cures them, even though it never had any kind of medicinal property whatsoever. Yeah. It proves the power of belief and how strong that is.
Yeah.
So it is one of those things that's puzzling and it's connected to everything. It's obviously it's obviously connected to everything. And yes, transhumanism it's like the paradox of like it's both impossible and inevitable.
Thank you for all your great work, B. I really appreciate you. You're very entertaining. You're very awesome. You're very down to earth. You're someone I could relate to. Man. I follow a lot of people, but you're one of the people that I could just get down to earth with and be like, yes, like we're thinking on the same level. It's all connected. Don't be duped. You know what I mean? Keep up the good work. Don't be duped. I'm not saying you're not duped. Don't be duped. I'm saying to the chat and everything. Just know that it's all connected. Like keep up
Oh yeah,
keep up the good
everybody
fight.
here's pretty smart, and
I know.
that's what I love about it too. Is that I love that fact that we're all kind of quietly trained to believe
Yeah.
that only we have these crazy thoughts, and that they are crazy to begin with, right?
I think there's a lot more people
And-
out there that think like us, you know.
And then all of a sudden you start to express them, and people are like, I think about that too. Hey, I think about that also. Yeah, you know, and it's like, wow, there's a lot of us, you know, and that's the thing, right? They want to keep people apart from acknowledging the truth together.
Yeah.
And having conversations on that level, because then once we all get together and we go, yeah, wow, you know, hey, look, there's a million of us here. You know, it's that kind of thing of like, wow,
We're not all against each other. We're not all racist and bigots and all of that nonsense. It's all pushed. It's all part of an agenda. Thank you for having me on, man. I appreciate everything you do. I'm not going to stay any longer. I'm sure there's other people who want to get on. Shameless plug. I'm trying to build up my YouTube page, so check out What Geeks Do Network on YouTube, and I'll continue to watch you. Keep up the good work. Alternative Rocks, Iron Age, Comicsgate, all of it, man. This is the indie age. This is where we're at.
All right, man. Thank you so much, brother.
Thanks,
Take it
Pete.
easy. Have a wonderful night.
You too.
Hey, look at that. Rob Geronimo in the chat. What's up, Rob? Thank you for being here. It's open lines tonight. So if you guys want to come on here, you want to talk about what I've been talking about with the Jim Shooter thing, or something else is on your mind, feel free. I'll be on for an hour and a half. So we got about 22 minutes. 22 minutes. Up next, we have Xerd. What's up?
Hey, what's up, Peter? How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I really appreciate you having me on.
No problem.
Yeah, I do. I'll say I have quite a few stuff. Let me see if I could move along really quickly. I think the first thing, I think I'll come from it at a different angle. I don't necessarily believe that it's all connected. I don't. I believe that there's a lot of opportunities. I think there are a lot of serendipitous moments because, for example, if you look at President Trump, that whole situation.
Oh well, I want to specify one thing.
Mhm.
Just because it's all connected doesn't mean it's all coordinated. The two things are different. So keep that in mind.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. What I mean by that when I say that it's all connected is because literally think about like even what you had for dinner tonight.
Mhm.
What you had for dinner tonight stems from all of humanity's existence bringing you up to this one moment of I chose pizza for dinner or I chose a hamburger for dinner. Because every single thing that ever occurred within the line of thought, consciousness, choice, creation, etc., brought you to that one moment. And it's the same thing tonight. It's the same thing of what brought me to having this discussion, of what brought you to being on this show. That's what I mean by it's all connected. Every single thing that everyone goes through, it's all connected in terms of what history has done and brought us to be where we're at. But doesn't necessarily always mean that it's all coordinated.
Oh, okay. All right, cool. I guess I've had the fundamental misunderstanding, but I got that now. I think the next thing that I would like to say, and I think that also has to do with this to some degree, and I think that is legitimacy. And I think that's one thing that's plaguing kind of like comics, because I know for myself that the question is asked, why don't people just seize the moment and take, the indie stand? A lot of people are, scared about putting themselves out there, about, what if I make a mistake? We have been trained to think that, you gotta put it out perfect. You can't make any mistakes. You just gotta know from the start what you're doing and have it be perfect. And if it's not perfect, then who's going to fit the bill for the loss? Which is why that whole writer strike was just so crazy. Like, they're simultaneously talking about how they hate their evil overlords, but then admitting that, hey, we really need the pay grade and we really need to be a part of this circle because who else is going to fit our bills?
Yeah, not understanding that at the end of the day, what they're really getting paid from is the audience, and the studio would be the middleman.
Exactly. And they want that middleman because they don't want to assume the risk. They know that their ideas suck. They know that they
Yeah, exactly. Because if they really believed in them and they thought they were absolutely great, and how could they fail?
Yep.
Why would you want a middleman involved at that point, right? You know,
Yeah.
you'd want to get rid of them.
Yeah, they definitely need that backing because like you see it all the time in a vacuum when you ask them to prove themselves, and then the couple of brave souls that step up and go. I mean, what was that? What was that comic? ITCBITCH Planet. Like you ask them to prove themselves with that comic book, and it just flops hard, and they're just like, well, at least I wrote Spider-Man, because those are
Yeah,
established.
they fall back on the established corporate character. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we see that happen a lot. Even, I mean, not to take away from the hard work and talent of the guys that formed Image,
Hmm.
but they wouldn't have been able to form Image if they weren't first popular with
Yeah.
pre-existing corporate characters. You know, so they took advantage of a perfect storm of events, and then almost completely squandered it. But they wouldn't have been in that scenario if it wasn't for all the people. And I'm sure that, I mean, they'd have to be delusional to not acknowledge, they were standing on the shoulders of giants
Yeah.
that built those characters up largely. You know, maybe you could say, well, Liefeld predominantly had a lot of his own characters being incorporated and created for X-Force and whatnot. But like everybody else, and even Liefeld too, he still kind of got into a title that had a pre-existing connection with a bunch of characters and this and that.
Hmm.
And it's not to take away from anything that they accomplished at all, or their talent, or their work, or anything. But that doesn't happen if they just got together one day with no pre-existing work and form Image, and then launch like Spawn and Youngblood and Wildcats and whatever,
Yeah.
without ever having worked one day at Marvel or DC, because some of them worked at DC as well. Like McFarlane had worked at DC, and then it did a couple other things too, independently. They all kind of did, but it's like, they wouldn't have had any of that. So again, all that stuff was a precursor to them going, yeah, this is a good time for us to do this. And that's what I figured would have happened with the strikes that we see going on now, because, and I knew it wouldn't, but that's what should have happened if they were coming from a legit point of saying that this is this system, it's a horrible system, it's a broken system, who would want to be a part of this system, and then I was like, well, if they're doing the things they say they're doing, like if they're using AI without their consent,
Hmm.
if they're doing all this stuff using their voice, their likeness, whatever,
Hmm.
that's lawsuit territory. They would have like a class action lawsuit with the union against the studios. And I was like, they're not doing that. And I was like, so it's not a lawsuit thing. They're not actually violating contracts. So this is a money thing, clear and simple. And they're trying to paint it in the guise of like, it's for humanity. And it's not for humanity. You guys, as soon as you get paid what you want to get paid for your AI, whatever,
Hmm.
you're all on board.
Well, yeah, because I think it is a monetary thing in a sense, but it's sort of like the they get the hush money and then they shut up because it's like you bite the hand that feeds you. Yeah, because it was weird reading that manifesto that they recently put out about how and of course they did it. The person who wrote it was anonymous about how the strikes are coming to an end, and they got to join the actor picket line now.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it was so weird because then you get to like the middle of the paragraph and it's just like, oh yeah, by the way, you non-union people, they talk about trickle down economics. We got what we want, and that means that you'll get what you want too. And
Yeah.
if you ask for it and they don't give you, find another job. You learn the code. So it's sort of this narcissistic self-absorption. Yeah, the bad guy is bad only when you're not getting what you want. But when you get what you want, you'll say anything. You'll be on any team.
Yeah, and the same thing goes too for how quick they are to dehumanize people that are looking to not just starve or looking to just keep a roof over their head.
Yeah.
Quick to dehumanize. When all of a sudden all you ever hear from them is about, oh, people are people, human rights are human rights, etc., yada yada, blah blah blah. There's no illegal people, there's no this, there's no that, But then as soon as these kinds of things happen, you're like, scab, throw a brick at them, kill them.
Yep.
Make sure they don't work ever again. Like, oh my God, you guys.
It's the whereas the appearance of of good looking. I remember an Honest trailer one of the lines in that Honest trailer about Twilight that I love so much, and when they talk about how Edward is dating Bella, and he's like, this 3,000-year-old man is there dating a 16-year-old, and it's like, don't worry guys, it's okay because he looks 17. And so I'm like, it's the same application, they look like they care about human rights until they actually have to care about human rights.
Yeah, it's a good facade, and some of them are better at it than others because some of them are better actors than others. But
Yeah.
it's one of those things where even I look at it and I'm like, Fran Drescher.
But it was sorry to rush along.
But I just want to say Fran Drescher. Fran Drescher was put to be the president of SAG. Like, I want to be like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
Oh boy.
I wouldn't want to listen to her for any kind of like, oh my lord. And then when she had these really really cringy type interviews, which was and then when she'd be putting stuff on Twitter through the account, I was like, holy cow. So I started looking into her, and I'm like, well, that's really interesting. She was with someone a couple years ago who is now being deemed an anti-vax conspiracy theorist.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
because
yeah.
they were outspoken about it was this Indian gentleman, and they were outspoken about a bunch of different things, and I'm like, well, that's kind of convenient because it looks like blackmail to me. Let's put her in this position, and now she's gonna have to just kind of like puppet dance.
I think some of that is actually them wanting to do that, because the way I see it, I see it in tiers. So you got the lower tier people who have been genuinely convinced that what the top down have been preaching is the gospel. Then you got the mid-level people that they're in on the conspiracy, but they'll be thrown to the wolves if anything goes wrong.
Yeah.
And then you got the top guys that know everything, or the puppeteering the masses. And I would say Fran is more like the bottom tier, even though she's
like a useful idiot.
Exactly.
That kind of a thing.
So
and I'm not calling her necessarily an idiot. That's like just a term.
Term
for those. But yeah, there's always that, because that's how they can maintain plausible deniability with everything, just in case there's something that goes down. It's like the whole thing with you get like the Nuremberg trials that were when they tried all the Nazis and everything, and then you discovered that like the U.S. took like 1,600 of them and then put them in all these higher up positions throughout various government agencies.
Yeah.
and then even in the world, they put some of them in NATO and some of them in the European Commission and stuff. Like, it's like, so just the ones that that weren't connected enough.
Yep.
Got tried. Oh well, it's the same thing, I guess, that it always is.
Yeah, I learned that as when I was younger, that a certain dictator, after he lost the war, he wasn't going to be put to death. He was actually going to be sat up with the rest of them. You know how it is. World leader loses, he gets a pat on the back. You tried, son, and you just have to foot the bill. But they're not going to condemn you. It's only because he offed himself that the history books look at him the way we do, even if he committed all those atrocities.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. Again, this is stuff that's just it's as old as human history.
Yep.
But that's what I mean when I'm saying things are like all connected, because it really is. It's in that capacity. But there are some things, because you still have, at least for now, we still have some semblance of agency where we're able to, have this conversation, because I can't go, oh well, they control every single aspect of everything and they'll shut you down, because then we wouldn't be able to see so many people coming together to be able to communicate and have conversations like this utilizing these types of platforms. It would all just be like completely suppressed. It would be a total dystopian, totalitarian nightmare.
For sure.
But that's the thing, is that they know they can't necessarily go about it in a very overt way. Yep. So it's the ideal way is to kind of make an example maybe out of somebody, and then have you feel like, oh man, I can't say anything, so they want you to self-censor. And the more people that self-censor, the more all of a sudden that prophecy becomes fulfilled. So that's why it's really important for people to find some capacity to, be able to either speak out or not give in. And that's the more important part than the speaking out part. I know some people go like, oh, silence is compliance or whatever, you're, doing whatever. I don't buy into that. I buy into the aspect of, as long as you're not giving in, then you're doing as much as you could do. And some things, I get it. Some people, they're put in a very, very awful position.
Yep.
And it's tough. It really is. But yeah. So anyway, man, thank you so much for being on tonight and having the conversation with me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks again. Maybe next time I'll get to what I was gonna say.
Oh, what were you gonna say? I'm so sorry.
Oh, it's cool. Yeah, I was trying to rush along. There was one thing about the indie scene that I really wanted to talk about, and that was
okay, yeah. Let's do that.
About comic books and Eric July, because like I like Eric July, I really do. I just bought his book Ice Hom, and I remember being on Thinking Critical, and I would ask them. I'm a big advocate about the indie scene. I mean, like one of my favorite sites is Comic Book Newsstand. So I was talking to them. I asked them the question, why don't you guys feature indies? And I think Doc, he said, well, it's because the indies aren't giving good enough stories. It's like, you need better stories to be able to compete with these established names. And I'm looking at Editor July. He's one of the biggest guys out here. He has a lot of things. He's doing the thing. He's
I'm sorry, where were you asking this of before?
Thinking Critical.
Okay.
YouTube, the YouTube comic aficionados.
Wow, I'm surprised that he said that. He used to be an Alterna reader. I guess he stopped.
Doc said that. Not.
Okay, Doc. Okay, yeah, Doc's a little bit more towards the mainstream.
Yeah, so Doc was saying that you need better stories. I mean, they all kind of agreed in the sense. I mean, it feels like you need that story that grips people, because you're fighting nostalgia, and childhood wonder to this new breed of people, and I think that's a very strong thing to break. So I'm looking at Eric July's book, and I'm saying Eric July is doing a phenomenal job in doing this as a business. But I'm reading the book. I'm reading both issues 1 and 2, and I'm just like, this would not pass Alterna's story writing. It feels very. It's a 90-page book for both of them, and the first one feels like decompressed storytelling, and the second one seems to just run off the rails and somewhere else and have no focus until the half page. And then I think about what was it? Comics Matter. What was his comic again?
Oh man, which one are you talking? Like the Jawbreakers?
Jawbreakers, yes.
Yeah.
Jawbreakers. I've listened to people talk about that. Those stories are not good. They say go to get somebody to write the story for you, or it's unfocused. It's very amateur writing, and the only person that I've heard consistent decency about is Ethan Van Sciver. I mean, I'm really looking forward to Alpha Core because it's going to be written by Chuck Dixon, but we really need these stories that grip people, and I think that's part of the equation that we're missing. We're not vetting each other, and I think that's something. I know Alterna, that's one of the main reasons.
Yeah, I wish those guys would continue to read Alterna.
Yeah,
we got a lot of great things here. I think they'd really like, especially, I think they'd like, not to toot my own horn, I think they would enjoy King Cryptid, just because it would probably make them feel like, oh yeah, this is probably on point with the stuff that I enjoyed and read growing up.
Yeah,
I know Doc's really big into like X-Men, Uncanny X-Men and things like that.
Yeah,
but at the same time, it's one of those things where I'm not someone necessarily who's like, I wish people would talk about this, I wish people would talk about that, and wanting them to say certain things. I'm more someone where if like with this show, I wanted to see other people do this kind of show. I never expressed it really.
Yeah.
And I went, well, why don't I just do it? Yeah. I'm not really someone, even with Alterna, I was like, I wish someone would do this and this and that. Why don't I just do it? It's that kind of a thing with me. But yeah, with other people, I would hope that they would give some people a shot, because there's a lot of good stuff out there. I get it. But at the same time, my rebuttal for the quality conversation there is like, and you see that largely from the mainstream.
Yeah, the mainstream is
Well,
mainstream
then,
is garbage. It's literally only because, and I've asked this question even with when it comes to Pokemon, you can see if front row seats. If you take Pokemon, I think 2 years ago was making their fan base upset because it was doling out trash, and then you had all these indie groups come along and say, look, we're doing what you want, but with this new property. And most people, because of that nostalgia, they're kind of gripped to the pavement, waiting for something spectacular. It's only until, what is it, Pal World started to come out where people started to pay attention to the indies. And I think that the same thing needs to happen with comic books, with indie comic books. We need just one comic book that resonates with a lot of people, that'll get people to start turning heads. And I think that's a foundational thing, and it needs to be a solid story. Alterna, I think Alterna will do it, but I think some of the people that are resistant is because, you go to Alterna, and the first thing they go, well, it doesn't ship over here, but they got digital.
oh, well, we do. We got the best shipping in comics because it's flat.
Yeah.
So what I mean by that is like, because some people said Wes can't get a lot of indies being in the Philippines.
Yeah.
So if Wes ordered, like, let's say, I don't know, 20 Alterna books, paid $40 and then paid $35 for shipping.
Yeah.
You're talking about 40 books for $75. No, wait, no, you're talking about, I'm sorry, 20 books for $75.
Yeah.
So then basically that turns into, what is that, like less than $4 a book?
Yeah.
That's less than the cost of one book from most mainstream publishers, on average.
Yeah.
And then we do digital as well, obviously, 99 cents a piece on there too. But the thing is that that's what I learned a long time ago, is not to focus on the audience or the support you don't have, and focus more on the support you do have, and make sure that you're grateful for it, you let them know about it, and then that's how you keep growing with it. Always be in a state of gratitude, because if you're not in a state of gratitude, man, if you're constantly in a state of entitlement, which is like the opposite, because a lot of people go like, oh, being in a state of ingratitude, and being not thankful is the opposite. That's not really the opposite. The opposite is feeling like you are owed something from someone.
Yeah.
So I'm always in a state where I'm like, wow, that's great that you chose to be here and watch this show, or chose to buy that book, or like when I'm signing books for like the campaign, I envision all the people that are there and that supported it, and it's overwhelming, and it's a great feeling. So I'm always in like that kind of state, because it leads you down a path of misery, because you're always going to be, it's never enough. It's always going to be this state of like, oh, this isn't good enough, and this isn't that. Who cares that they're supporting me? These other people aren't supporting me, and and you're constantly looking at what you don't have instead of appreciating what you do. And that's the irony, is you get more and more the more you appreciate what you do have.
That's some really good advice. Thanks so much, Pete. Just remember, like you are really the sole reasons why I even care about comics to begin with. I'm just getting through another, what is it, the Phoenix run, so that's pretty cool.
Nice.
Anyway, thanks again. I really appreciate it, having me on. It's been an honor.
Yeah, no problem, man. Thanks for being on here tonight. Let's see. American comics, I just want to address this, as I think the digital thing is hurting you, Pete. No, not at all. Not in the slightest. Not in the slightest. Okay, up next, and please let me know what you mean by that too, because it's, if anything, when we were on Comixology, we were getting pirated left and right. Now that we sell direct digitally, not only do we sell more direct digitally, our piracy is almost next to none. And I'm not saying like go out and change that, but people can pirate if they want to scan something, take pictures of it, do whatever they want to do. So that's not even my worry. But yeah, in terms of the digital, it's great having, because we'll actually have, there's a couple people actually in the chat right now where they purchased a bunch of digital comics, really loved them, and then said, oh, I'm going to start buying physical from Alterna because the books are good enough. So yeah. All right, up next, let's see here.
Oh,
hey, what's up? Hold the Truth. How's it going?
my man, what's up, man? You know what I really appreciate, man? I appreciate you're doing this. But another thing is, I appreciate that you mentioned that, you know, Marvel and DC doing good does not dictate the future of the industry because, as you stated, man, Image Comics once was number one and number, what was it, number two, I think, and number three. Because I think one big problem we have is, man, what happened to they don't deserve our money? If they're not doing a good job, they don't deserve our money and let someone else
Yeah,
rise to the top.
if anything, you can tell that they think it's a given because they'll always talk about every jumping on point is also a jumping off point. No, 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 no. Every issue is a jumping off point. It doesn't. You don't have to have it as a jumping on point. Every issue is a potential where that reader goes, "I've had enough," and it's a jumping off point. So it doesn't. It's that mentality of like making the story just like never end, and it
Mm.
decompress it and drag it out, and they're so stupid they'll stay with it. It's like what that shows you the mindset right there
Well,
that they think that they already have you and that you're
mm,
not going anywhere.
well, not to interrupt you. My thing is this, man. The greatest thing we've proven in America is we've mastered the never ending story. I mean, think about Batman is over 80 years old. Even some series you're working on Alterna are over 5 years old, And the thing is, man, that is a mastery. It's just that when it comes to the main two, DC and Marvel, and this is one thing I gotta say, with you owning Alterna and all that, I believe it's disrespectful to put you and DC in the same position because DC and Marvel sold out. They're no longer comic book companies, man.
Oh
They're
yeah, well that would be like putting like the comic shop in the same position as Amazon
mm,
and saying like, well, Amazon can do it.
yeah, dude, they're just a branch, man. They're a branch. Marvel and DC. What people don't want to get over is they're a branch. They're a branch of a multimedia corporation.
Yep.
Disney basically says we got over 80 years of stories from Marvel. Warner Brothers, didn't Warner Brothers buy DC what in the 80s or 70s? I can't remember when, but they own them. They're not comic book companies. So this narrative that, oh, we need DC and Marvel to be doing good, when? They haven't, Marvel hasn't been a comic book company since the 90s. DC hasn't been a comic book company since 60s or whatever. And another thing you brought up, man, that was genius is I want to ask you this question because I'm working on a book on the comic book industries. I want to run this by you. I personally think that Image Comics sabotaged themselves by working with DC and Marvel
Mm.
instead of saying we're not working with them for 10 years and until they change their ways. I saw it as, well, I'm Todd, I'm whoever, we're going to work with them, but they haven't changed their rules on creator rights or nothing. It became a situation, in my opinion, where, you know what, it doesn't affect us anymore. We own our own company. So who cares if Marvel and DC don't want to treat independents correctly? That doesn't have to do with us. We own our own company. I think what really hurt Image Comics and they would have had the nail in the coffin for Marvel is they should have never collaborated with him. There should have never been a Spawn and Batman. There should have never been any crossovers because from the outside in, you're looking at it as, oh well, Todd McFarlane arrived because Batman did a collaboration with Spawn instead of, until they change. And you run an alternative. I look at it like this is that when you segregate, you allow your fans to breathe. It's like, you're reading King Crypt and you're absorbing that for the next 5, 10 years. And your fans are like, you know what? Alterna's doing great. We don't have to worry. about their stories being corrupted. You know, what I'm saying? Peter's letting these characters breathe and create their own legacies. As soon as Image teamed up with a, Spawn crossover Batman, it became, in my honest opinion, well, Batman approves of Spawn's existence, so I guess it's a good thing. What's your
I
thoughts?
definitely, yeah, I definitely appreciate that viewpoint. I always thought it was odd too later on, especially as a creator. When I was a fan, I didn't mind too much, but when I was a creator afterwards, I was like, that's an odd decision because it didn't need to happen either. It actually benefited DC more at the time than Image, to be honest.
Oh, dude, because it gave them more life, man. It breathed in.
Yeah.
It's that old saying. I don't know if I remember it correctly, but dude, when the enemy's down, man, stomp them out, man. DC and Marvel, to me, man. Let's be honest. There's the corruption. I
Yeah.
think what's hurting them and destroying them is that the corruption. Let's be honest, they're no longer American companies anymore. Like, you can't go into Marvel
Oh
and
yeah,
create new.
these are transnational companies. They're
Mm,
not even international, in terms of this is global
mm,
stuff, and they're controlled globally as well. That's the
mm.
other part too with the gym shoot. It's such an oversimplified explanation for, oh, just come in there, make something good, have good people make it. Those days are gone.
Oh, yeah, no, it's gone. They won't. My thing is, dude, they wouldn't let you as an American create new ideas anyway. What's hurting the American comics is that everything right now goes against what we've mastered. Not manga, none of these other comic book storytelling ideas can defeat us. Americans are, with American comics, we're the greatest writers of all time, because DC, all these heroes have been going on for over 80 years. Like,
Mm.
I got a buddy of mine who told me that One Piece is beating Batman. You want to hear my answer to this, Peter? You know what I told him? One Piece will end. Batman will still be here long after I'm gone. So how can any manga be a victor when it ends? American comics are about constantly new writers, new creators. Think about it. The fact that Red Hood, I was talking to my boy, Red Hood arrived over 50 years after Batman was started. Over 50 years. So a lot of people don't get that the American comic book industry, the number one strength of us is long term. It's endless. It is endless. And I think what's hurting, like somebody was talking to you about the indies, is I think what's hurting indie comics is that we're still following the standards of the old guard. Like, I want to ask you something, since you're more into the, tapped into the sale process. I was working on this book. Is my theory is, why not allow the comic book shops, give them the ability to print, as in let them order. Let's say, for example, you got King Crypt in a comic book.
There's a quality
Oh, go on.
control aspect to that. Even if it was economically feasible to do it, even if it was technologically feasible in terms of these shops understanding how to put that together and do this kind of print on demand aspect and having the equipment. I mean, that's a several $1,000s investment, and then to maintain it, it's even more than that. So to do that and have that come about at the comic shop, you really need to have a different kind of setup, a different kind of employee, and a different kind of publisher creator, and a different kind of customer too, even, who is more comfortable with the aspect. I mean, I sell comics for dinged and dented that are like, people look at it and go, what's dinged and dented about this? But if I sell it to the person who's looking at the condition and everything else about it and really wants a mint copy, they'll tell you what's dinged and dented about it. But maybe the average customer won't. So there's the quality control aspect of it. And that would go out the window completely. So you would have a whole paradigm shift in what that means. I mean, the distribution system and the retail system, as far as that goes, incorporating print and whatnot into it, like printers and those kinds of capabilities, that is such a whole different animal, and it doesn't necessarily need to be that way, because there's a lot of printers right now that can do print on demand and then just ship it to you, and then you can get it out to retail and do that kind of step, because you know that once you were to incorporate that, if you had that specialized thing occur within a comic shop, that book isn't going to be some $5 book. That book's going to be like 10 to 15 to 20 to pay for everything that's going into the creation and the maintenance of it, and the employee that's running it. So again, it turns into you don't have the say on the price, you don't have the say on a lot of things, and it removes a lot of that ability for a creator to run their own business. It removes a lot of that away. So yeah, I get where you're saying it, and where you're coming with that whole thing.
Well, not to interrupt. No, the thing I was saying is, why not allow the comic shop to order from you when you have a set minimum where they have the printing rights? Let's say they like a certain set of books and they want to order them as one book. Let's say they want a King Crypt and another book you have, and they say, we really think these would sell and we'd be willing to sell it at the shop. Can we have a custom order? And you're like, I got a minimum requirement. If you're gonna do this,
okay, well, let's put it this way. There's no way to reprint an Alterna Comics book on print on demand. The paper stock involved, like, you couldn't do newsprint. The paper stock involved is too thin. It would get destroyed within the printer. There's no digital printer that can handle that. So you would have to have a big giant printing press, essentially, that costs tens of thousands of dollars, with a lot of people involved to maintain it. Big rolls of paper, very expensive, very large area, a lot of ink, and specialized workers that understand what they're doing to make sure that comes out. So if we're going on that, because that means that at that point in time, everything is then digital printed, which means 80% of the comics you see in the comic shop are not printed that way. They're printed web press, offset, that kind of a thing. Big printers, big places, lots of paper, etc. And then the economy of scale is there too. You can't have economy of scale. So you'll never be able to print in quantity and lower that price to get to a certain point, because it's kind of like the same way something is like handmade. You're always going to hand make something, so you can't have an economy of scale because it's not scalable. You have to hand make every single thing. But when you have something run through a printing press, like a web press or an offset or whatever, most of the cost comes from just setting the machine up, and then it just goes out and it'll spit out like 1,000 copies in 10 minutes. You know, so if you do like a run that's 20, 30, 40,000, it'll spit those out over the course of the day. And then it goes to dry, it goes to bindery, it goes to prep, and then it gets shipped out, and it's a whole maintained facility. So the whole science and business of printing, to keep it in a certain professional aspect, is so different than going the print on demand road. Now, it doesn't mean that people wouldn't purchase it. People obviously do. There's a ton of people that purchase and support print on demand type digital printing. But to have that contract written up with like the retailer and retailers don't even want to take the extra 3 minutes to go to a separate website to order Alterna books, even though they'll get a bigger discount that more than makes up for the 3 minutes they're going to spend. They're not going to want to handle print orders day in and day out. Like, that's not, they just want the stuff shipped, put it out there, and then that's it. That's done. So again, you're talking about a whole different business. Something that I think, and you mentioned it before about, and then I'll let you go after I address this, because I got two other people, and it's been great talking to you. But the thing I think that's really, really hurting independent comics modern day, if I had to nitpick and say one thing, and it's not about, it's the obvious is obviously good story, good lettering, good art, yada yada. Not that. It would have to be what you were just talking about. The idea and concept of this is a character and we're following their journey, their life, and their adventures. Most indie books are treated like films, where it's very plot-centric. You're not really invested in a character for longer than maybe the book you're reading. And then that's it. So you can't build on that. You can tell multiple stories, you can become prolific, but let's face it, how many people have like a ton of great stories in them? Maybe you've got like one great story in you. So try to do, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing with King Cryptid. I would advise that people really hone in on developing character before developing story. Develop your characters, think about their design, think about their motivations, think about what is this character going through, what are they up against, why are we paying attention to them? What does this character mean? What is this character trying to do? What is this character, and then the other characters that are in this world along with the character that are making this character's life hell or making this character's life better. So then all of a sudden the stories write themselves. If you keep coming up with characters and you keep coming up with their motivations and everything else these characters are about, then you come up with settings and locations. Then you come up with ways to tie them together. Now all of a sudden you've created a story. And then you can keep building story after story after story and have organic growth within your series with all of these characters, with this world you're building. And you're doing it in a way where you're telling cohesive stories, complete stories, and you're able to build over time. But if you're constantly telling one story at a time, when everything is like it starts and stops, it's a new story, it's a new universe, it's new characters. You're never gonna get in the same sphere of comicdom. You're never gonna get that Batman. You're never gonna get the Spider-Man, the Superman, the character you follow along, the character that you're anticipating. What's happening now? What's going on with their life? What are they up against this time? And there's some creators that are obviously doing that, and I think they're finding success with that method of storytelling. But to me, that's the biggest hurdle is creators looking to make plot first before character. Make the character, fall in love with the character, really know the ins and outs of it, and then start hitting the ground running with those stories. And you're going to start building. And then the stories tell themselves. And then all of a sudden it becomes something where 10 years from now, you've got all these issues with this character. People have followed along the whole time. And it's a whole different thing than creating one whole new story every year over and over and over again.
Oh yeah. Well, I'll say one more thing, and I thought of this. I just want to get your thoughts because another issue the comic book industry has, it doesn't learn from other industries. A lot of people don't know that storyboarding originates from comics, and one thing I've seen happening, and I got a game design background, is in video games they've come out with naming a genre after a character. For example, you got Metroidvania, you got Souls-like. I think what the comic book industry and a lot of creators need to do is, if you're going to create a Batman-like character, just say it's a Batman-like comic, a Superman-like comic. That way people going in already know.
That's a two-pronged thing. That's number one, you're going to get your ass sued for that because you're using them to market your product. That's total grounds for getting sued immediately. You can't even in print type this is a superhero book because it's a co-owned trademark from both Marvel and DC. Oh. Yeah, you can say it's a superhero, but if you put that in print and you market it as this is a superhero book, you're gonna get you should get a letter, and if you don't, consider yourself lucky because they co-own that trademark. Same thing with supervillain as well. The thing with that also, from a storytelling standpoint, what it is that you set up people for expectations that are just going to shoot you in the foot. So if you tell them, if I go to people, oh, King Cryptid is like Batman and it's like X-Men and Thundercats and this and that and the other thing. First of all, they're not going to know what the hell the story's about because they just heard me say all these other things. And they're going to go, I'm going to go look at what those are about. And then second of all, you're going to look at that and it's going to, if you love them, you're going to already have expectations that make no sense for what this story is. And then if you don't love them, or worse, you don't even know what the hell those things are, me telling you that means nothing. So it's better to just explain what's that story about, or use terms that are, broader, like more like genre specific, like horror, sci-fi, etc. Because, so you talked about Metroid. the company Nintendo could talk about that, but you're not going to see like Sonic the Hedgehog or whatever else be described like, oh, it's like Mario and he runs fast. You're never going to see a company describe that character by using, like, you're not going to describe Iron Man if you're Marvel by saying that he's like Batman but he has armor. You know, this is not going to happen. Yeah.
Yo, that's a lawsuit for real.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, man, it's been an honor, man. Thank you for having me on, man.
Yeah, no problem, man.
You might have saved some lives, man. Yo, you ever thought, why not write a book on you know how they did the Marvel way or something, man?
Oh, maybe later on in life. I got too
many
many fun stories to write before I write the depressing ones.
Oh, nah, not depressed. Come on, man.
That stuff's depressing.
You can fill people up with info, man. You know? Yeah, all right, brother.
Well, that's what this is for, too. It's easier for me to just speak about it, you know, and people can actually take this passive form of entertainment and knowledge and, you know, do whatever else they're doing in the day, have it on the background, as opposed to sit there and dedicate the time reading the book. If they're going to sit there and read something I write, I want them to sit there and read one of my comics.
All right. Yeah, but yo, Peter, man, you might have just saved somebody's life. That I've been working on this story. It's a Batman-like for over 10 years.
We'll find a way. Talk about it. The best thing to do, this goes to you and every other creator, talk about your characters like no other characters and stories have ever existed. Get in that mindset. Nothing else has ever existed. And if someone ever wants to talk to you, well, what inspired you? Yeah, you know, this, that, the other thing, you know, those things inspire me. They inspire, you know, my storytelling. But never go, yeah, Batman, total inspiration for my character.
Lawsuit.
Yeah.
Yo, Peter, I'm going to sell my mom's left leg to get out of the lawsuit. All right, brother.
You take it easy, man. Have a great night.
Peace.
All right, up next, we got two people. I'm going to have to cut it off at that. I got Paul in the back, and I got Broken Compass. So here's Paul. What's up, Paul?
Oh, there we go. You hearing me?
Yep.
Perfect. Yeah, the whole Jim Shooter thing, I think it's an oversimplification. It reminds me of a super chat, or maybe it was just a regular chat you got a while ago. Somebody was just like, hey, Pete, why don't you just have EVS, host you on a show, and then that'll fix all your funding problems. And it just was like so naive that you just kind of answered it with a wry chuckle, and that was it. And
yeah,
yeah. But it's kind of the same thing. We can't sit here and listen to Mark Millar. That he's got his money. He's set. He's got his wild ideas. But he's on the board of Netflix. He's not a comic writer anymore.
I didn't want to mention it by name, but yeah, I was really disappointed with that. He's a smart guy, and I was like, man.
Yeah. That's the thing. Anybody can say that, oh, I'm a lifelong comic fan or whatever, but he's a Netflix guy now. He's no longer a comic guy. He's moved on. He's making Hollywood money. Yeah. So we can take whatever he says with a grain of salt. I think really it boils down to us here in the chat, fans of independent stuff. There's really kind of three ways you can go about kind of building up the independence, because it's like we've keep beating the same drum, and we've been saying it for what now, like 6-7 years.
Oh, easily,
Marvel and DC are sinking. Kind of go away. I brought it up in the chat earlier, though. Spider-Man's going to be around forever. Superman will be around forever. Those kind of iconic characters are going to outlive companies because they're going to make money regardless of where they go. And unless somebody gathers up all the old comics and burns them, the stories are still going to exist.
Yep.
So don't worry about them. These billion-dollar companies, don't worry about their money. Worry about your hobby. And I think the ways you can do that really, there's a lot of discussion of ISOM and the Rippaverse in here. And the first two issues, you can't go in expecting a first-time writer is gonna blow you away like it's Dark Knight Returns or Watchmen or something like that.
Yeah, I think people are correlating what Eric raised to meaning that would be on par with whatever. And the thing is that what Eric raised, and I'm not going to take away anything from him at this point, but what Eric raised was the ability that he built a platform for, and this is the biggest takeaway from Eric July's success. He built a platform day in, day out, put a massive amount of work into that, honed in on that, really played up to his strengths, built that for a long time, and then when he created this thing, was able to point a lot of those people to that. And that was it. That was it. It's like the same thing that happened with Scholastic with comics. I've heard people kind of talk about them like they're like the little indie that could, and I'm like, are you kidding me?
Right.
Like they dominated in a specific space for decades. It was their game to lose if they were going to get into the comic sphere. So of course, if they put out a comic, it could be just about anything. It doesn't mean that that comic is the greatest comic ever made just because it's selling a lot of units. Doesn't mean it's horrible necessarily, but it doesn't mean it's great. So, and the thing with Eric, again, it's like you talked about, you know, he's still, at the end of the day, he's still making this first time kind of thing, and give him 5 years. He'll probably be a lot better than where he was 5 years prior.
Right.
You know, so it's that kind of a thing where I think people are putting the wrong correlation, where he earned and raised the money he raised based on what he did with all the work prior to market it. And if anything, that is where the work should go for a lot of people who are losing their minds thinking, well, how do I be successful making what I want to make? It's the marketing side. You got to get better at it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the major problem is, and this goes beyond comics, it's just a people issue, is counting other people's money. You look at the millions that Eric made, and people go, "Oh, well, he's a millionaire. What does it matter? He should be a better writer because he's a millionaire."
It's like what I talked about with the entitlement versus the gratitude mindset. You can't sit there and be like, "Oh, look at all the things I don't have all the time." You know, be tremendously grateful for the things you do have, because at any moment in time, that stuff could all go away too.
Right.
You know, and the more you're grateful for what it is that you have and what you're building, what you're working for, the more you appreciate it, the more you care about it, and the more that people gravitate towards you. And then that's how you actually achieve a level of abundance. Every single point in my life ever where I've stumbled and fell, I was more concerned about what I could get out of something than what I could give to make sure that it was growing and being nurtured properly. Every single time. You know, and it's like you got to learn those lessons. So I'm not just coming in being like, oh yeah, this is how I've done my whole life. It's like, no, this is from mistakes that I've learned. And I look back and I go, well, what was the key factor? And it was my attitude and how I approached it. Looking at it as like, well, that's not enough. You know, and asking more of myself, but not appreciating what I've already put into it. So I'm always coming from a state of I don't have. And it's manifesting a situation where I don't have. But once I'm starting to be grateful for more and more of what I do have, it manifests a situation where I do have what I need. And then that continues to grow. And I know it sounds like crazy, wishy thinking crap, but at the same time, it's one of those things where if you never have the thought, if you're never enveloped in it, you end up going down a different path. So your thoughts manifest your reality, because every single move you make it towards that outcome, and you're not even realizing it.
Yeah, I think that leads a lot of people to get just defeated by their own self-doubt.
Yes,
you have to have the most confidence in your idea, because that's how you're going to sell it. Nobody else is going to be there for you, like your mom saying, "Oh, you got a great idea," when you're the one that's kind of poo-pooing it right out the gate. Other than that too, yeah, I think the big takeaway as well, even if you don't see ISOM 1 and 2 as well written or good comics, he's now able to hire Chuck Dixon for a comic. He's able to hire all these people and build this infrastructure around him to get good artists.
Yeah.
And, like I put in my little byline here, invest in your favorite artist. Think of it as an investment in your hobby. You're helping it flourish into the future with just a little bit of money.
It also shows a self-awareness of any kind of shortcomings that he might be aware of, or it might have been brought up to him, and that he's taken the time to evaluate, which is, to do that in such a quick fashion. I think that's been the key to a lot of his successes. He's relatively able to pivot when needed, and he's quick on his feet when it comes to that. You know, there's a lot of amazing takeaways to learn from other people that you think maybe you can't learn anything from them. Maybe you think you're a far better comic creator than him and you deserve way more success than him. Well, why don't you learn about maybe why is he successful? Let me look into that, and analyze that, study that, and appreciate that from that aspect. And maybe you could take away something from it and learn and incorporate that into what you're going to do. But a lot of people don't really do that. It just turns into like a angry jealousy thing.
Oh yeah, for sure. But I think one, invest in your favorite artist, and two, try out new artists. Anybody. Order. There's plenty of independents. Try ordering from them. See what you like about them. Some people I'm noticing aren't liking the fact that it takes 3 years to get a single book. Completely understood. That's another thing. Sometimes a book is good enough, but I got it in like a 3-month turnaround, which is like, hey, that's awesome. Good, it's good work. It's solid, and it came, within half a year. I've been doing crowdfunding for, I think, like 12 years now. So it's like having that quick turnaround where it's less than a year, perfect. But it doesn't. Sometimes you need those writers and creators that are workhorses who can come out with something guaranteed like every 8 or 9 months, and that just helps you kind of get through things. That helps build up the stack of books for you to read.
Oh yeah.
But the other way you can invest too, I think a good example of this is John's Long Box. You look at him, you start up a channel, talk about the stuff, get the word out there. Don't just rely on big guys like Shane or EVS to have their channels and talk about stuff. You have to get out there, show your passion for stuff, talk about projects that sometimes a lot of people haven't even heard about.
No one owes you marketing and time and everything else. And especially that's, again, it's like what I was talking about. If people don't see that you're putting in the time and investment and you don't care about your own stuff in like the biggest way possible, they're not going to even care about it in the slightest. But if you get out there and you're excited about it, you're talking about it, you're talking to other people about it, you're bringing on other people, you're having conversations, you're doing this, you're doing that, that shows to other people, all that kind of stuff. It's a resonance. It affects all of us. We're drawn to it. But if you're sitting there and you're just miserable and you're like, I wish someone else would do that. Why don't they do that? They got such a big platform, or this person should talk more about this, or this person should talk more about that. If you're having that thought, that's the universe telling you, you need to do that. And it depends whether or not you listen to that. And people that listen to it, maybe you're going to find that, hey, look, you're on a different, more positive path in life. It's certainly more positive than sitting there being like, finger pointing at the screen going, why don't they talk about the thing I want them to talk about?
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of that. There's a lot of valid criticism that some of the bigger shows in CG just talk about culture war stuff or just nonsense instead of the the art of it. Which artist inspired you? What comic books are we reading? What indie comic books are we looking forward to? The stuff that we really should be talking about instead of it becoming like a strange, late night talk show. But yeah, I'm trying to think what my other point was here, because I noticed you and Rob, you put your noses to kind of the grindstone, especially with all the live shows that you're doing, and hopefully that is showing an uptick in the sales for you guys. And generating interest in your books.
And that's the thing is coming at it from a place of positivity and coming at it from, this is something I want to do and something that I would like to do, and then stick with it and see how it pans out, And there's a lot of people that, I don't know if it's fear, I don't know if it's a lack of self, because I've talked to some people that are in that mindset where they're like, well, so-and-so has such a big platform, they should talk about this or that other thing. And I'm like, well, why don't you? You should talk about it. If you want to see that being talked about, then talk about it. Get it out there. And they're like, yeah, but I don't have a big platform.
Yeah,
well, but when they started.
Yeah, you would be the guy kicking the door open then. Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah. You would be the guy on the ground floor. So
it's like, this weird digital age of judging self-worth by how big your platform is puzzling to me. But I mean, it's one of those things where you have to acknowledge everyone started with practically nothing at some point in time. So if you can't wrap your mind around that this person, whoever you think they are, that with this tremendous platform, and they started with practically nothing too, and they built it and built it and built it. It takes time. So it's the same concept. But some people look at it and they go, well, I don't want to do that work, is what they really
Yeah.
are saying. And
Yeah,
they're
it's
like, yeah,
Yeah, it's like Razman's saying in the chat right here. We forget about laziness, and yeah, no,
yeah,
I get it. People work, man. It's we've got jobs and other things to do, but if this is your hobbies, you have to have some passion for it, and if you've got that, use it. Make a channel, write something, become a creative, do
yeah.
something with it. Otherwise, you're gonna look back and maybe regret that you didn't someday.
Yep. Or, and if it's the kind of thing where you're like, I don't want to do that. It's not in me, whatever it is. But you think, someone else, you would love to hear their take on it or them to talk about a certain thing. Find a way to address that in the kindest, most understanding way, realizing that this is this person's time and everything else that you're asking out of them to do, and address it like that. Are they going to acknowledge it? Sometimes probably yes, sometimes probably no. It's just going about it though and feeling like you are entitled to their time and that you have to tell them what to do, what to think, what to say, and then you want to turn around and be like, yeah, but I'm pro speech. It's like you just sound like someone who wants to control somebody. That's a whole other thing. That's the opposite. So I try not to go down that path of like, well, someone should talk about this and someone should do that and someone should go do. No. Once I realize like I'm getting down that mindset, I'm like, yeah, I wonder if it's something that I could do. And if it's not something that I could do, I really don't speak up much about it at all because I'd rather just do it, lead by example if you're going to lead at all. But thank you so much, man, for being on here tonight. I got to get to the one other person that's been waiting patiently.
Oh, absolutely, man. Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you, Paul. Thank you very much, man.
All right, man. Take care.
You too. All right, and the last guest for the night. What's up, Broken Compass? James.
Hey, Pete. How you been, brother?
I'm good. How are you, man?
Oh, not too bad. Thanks for helping us out on that late as sin ad drop that we gave you.
Oh, no problem, man. No problem. Completely
I
understand.
appreciate that. Hey, I haven't been able to tune in for a couple weeks, and so I don't know if you've touched on this, but all the DC conversation tonight. I was curious your thoughts on Bill dropping Fables into the public domain.
Oh yeah, with Bill Willingham, right? I thought that was an interesting move.
Hey.
It's interesting because it both empowers and depowers DC. And the only reason I say that is because by making it public domain, it's like, well, now DC can kind of do whatever they want to do with it. But then kind of so can everybody else. So it turns it into...
Yeah,
it's funny because isn't it largely based on public domain stuff in some capacity too, right? Isn't it just its characters, a lot of characters anyway, from Fables?
Yeah, it's like fairy tale based stories, but I guess his own spin on those characters, right?
Yeah,
and
yeah. I know he's got some original characters in there too,
yeah. So I laughed because it was, such an interesting way to fight back against DC and the shenanigans they were doing. It's my understanding that they had new writers that were trying to release new books of Fables, and Bill was not having it, pretty much, is my understanding.
Yeah. Honestly, I don't know what other road he could have taken, though. And that's the more important part. Is I don't know what other road he could have taken that would have been a better decision. I think the road that some people think he should have took would have cost it would have only made the lawyers rich. It would have cost way too much time and money and just be draining. And so, it's funny in that capacity of it makes it public domain and now, pretty much anyone, including DC, can kind of do whatever with it. But at the same time, I really don't think they gave him much of an option to pursue another path. So I think he did. I think he made the best move given what he could have done. And I think it really is interesting because I can't see DC actually doing much with it.
No, I think it devalues the property greatly for them. It's my understanding that they've been trying to develop a movie or a TV series of it for like years now. So I don't even think they'll bother. When anybody can do anything with the property, he put in all of the extended universe stuff that he did, all the add-on characters, like the Telltale games, like everything is like any story adjacent. is free game now, right? I mean, personally, I'm with you where it's like, why am I, gonna spend time focusing on that? We tell our own stories, like I don't really care
Yeah,
to take it and run with it, but the fact that he kind of gave the big middle finger to DC is just absolutely hilarious.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. And like I said, I think that was the best route he could have taken. I don't think that was anything, any other option he really had. The only other option would have been horrible. And yeah, I think it's interesting in terms of what will come from it. I don't know if anything really will, even on like the personal indie type level, if anyone's gonna pick it up and start making stories with those characters. But because
Yeah,
I
who
just
knows?
look at
I
it,
mean,
yeah, I look at
oh,
it and
go
I go,
ahead.
well, you could make your own. You could do exactly
Yeah,
what he
just
did
yeah.
and put your own kind of thing going on there, and then it's yours. But yeah,
I
that's pretty funny.
I think the best part of the entire affair was if you read his press release about it. It is just full of just calling DC out completely. He says at one point, like when I started this, the people working at DC were like men of honor and blah blah blah, and it's
Oh yeah,
changed so
yep,
much.
yeah,
And now like he pretty much calls everybody scumbags that works at DC, right? So it's a very ballsy move.
yeah. It's kind of indicative of everything that I've been talking about tonight with the way that the corporations are run and the way that these companies work and people going like, all you need is someone to come in and clean it all up and then hire like the imaginary best talent of the world that wants to make these imaginary great comics. And then
Well, you
everything
can't
will be set.
you can't clean it up because these companies now rule by like board majority, right?
Yeah,
Like, so
yeah.
it's not like gone are the days of like, editor in chief running certain books. It's like, it's gone the way of movies. It's all like, oh, let's do the writer's room and throw all these ideas on the board. And then, we're going to pass it up the chain to corporate and see
And
which ones
meanwhile, they
they
already
agree.
have all these different things. You got to make sure that that's included.
Yeah, you
And
got
you're
to
like,
make
but I
sure
don't
that
want to do that with my story. Well, too bad. I just look at that and
yeah,
I'm
it's
like,
kind of
what?
like there's the whole shenanigans going on with I can't remember the guy's name, but the one who's trying to sue DC because of the Batman.
Oh yeah, yep.
They stole his story that was, I guess, never produced or whatever.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
it's it's all kind of the same shenanigans over there, right? So
yeah, yeah. And at this point in time, that's what made and I mean, Paul let it out of the bag. I was really disappointed with what Mark Millar was talking about, where he's like, "Oh, they need to keep making the new comics because that's how you get all the stories." I'm like, "Have you read the new comics, Mark? They need to
yeah,
stop.
have you
They've had enough. They need to stop. There's a lot of
did you read it?
material to work from." I mean, let's face it. Like, there's so many comics out there. And I'm not even just talking about the big two. There's so many comics in the world in general. Like, no one could possibly in their lifetime read all of them. Like, not even close. So if you just focused on the big two or one of them, I mean, they have so many characters and stories to pull from. They don't need to keep making more things that just constantly devalue the characters and the property. I would be screaming if I bought Marvel or DC. I'd be like, stop making these stories. Every story you put out, you're devaluing this character, that character, the other. And then you go out there and you're doing what? You're yelling at. You're telling off the customers. Like, what the
Oh
hell's
yeah.
wrong with you? So it's like, I would
Oh,
go
it
in
must be
there and
something wrong with
yeah.
you because you don't like it.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's the thing. They're masters of the reverse psychology corporate game at this point. That's why why go down that path? Why subject yourself to it? It's like some circle of hell at this point, to do that. Why would you want to do that? Just go indie, make your own stuff. There's more places than ever before to get it out to people. There's better ways than ever before to market it. The marketing of many different indie creators at this point is far better than the corporate counterparts that are paying Lord knows what money to these people behind marketing teams to accomplish like fractions of what some of these others can accomplish on their own. It's mind-numbing that people just sit there and they go, well, the only way still is the corporate way. No, it's not.
Well,
Not at all.
I had to actually go to a brick and mortar to, trust my lying eyes when they did that Joker giving birth to a sludge baby. It's like, what are you guys doing over there? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, it's and even when they come across something and they make it and then slowly backpedal out of it and whatever, I'm like, yeah, well, the story could just be some make 'em up, whoever cares about this story kind of thing, but the storytelling is still bad, the compositions are still bad, the art is still bad, the effort is horrible and lacking. So even for a story that is just inane and doesn't necessarily need to exist because it's not benefiting anything, it's still bad across the board with all the rest of it. So
Yeah.
it's just on that level. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and wonder, well, how are people really enjoying this stuff? I just look at it and I go, again, I'm glad people are enjoying the stuff that they're digging from indie creators, that they're digging from me, Alterna, whatever it may be. And year over year, I notice more and more people end up gravitating towards it, coming on board, and discovering all this stuff they thought was completely lost. And it's kind of like when we lose a civilization because we've lost like the texts and the architecture and the statues and the art. And then now there's people taking the little brushes out and going like, oh my Lord, look at this thing. And then they excavate the site and they're like, and that's what they're doing right now. They're excavating this big, massive site of independent storytelling. And they're like, holy crap, it still exists. Does it look a little bit more primitive in some way, shape, or form? Yeah, because it's a civilization that was lost, and now we're trying to remember it. So as we remember it and we're able to build upon it and piece the puzzle together, it's going to get better. It's going to take time, though. People thinking it's an own on an indie creator to be like, what is it, Batman? I don't know. Give me 75 years. Give me 75 years and then we'll catch up and I'll see if it's Batman. If it's just as known or just as good. Give me 75 years and billions of dollars and we'll see what I could do. But it's just one of those things where, yeah, everybody keep building and it's going to get better and better. Just got to keep sticking with it.
Oh, for sure. Well, I appreciate you having me on, Pete. I know you are running a little late. If I may shill very quickly, if
Sure.
you'll allow. Kill Them Dead launches this Saturday, 9 p.m. on Bancroft. So anyone who's not aware of that, we're doing it's an 80-page blacklight reactive book with 80 minutes of power metal on 2 vinyl records. And we also have an art contest going on. You can visit killthemdead.com for the art contest. The winners will have their images pressed to the physical vinyl. As well, there's some cash prizes involved.
Oh, very nice, man. Well, best of luck to you with that launch.
Appreciate it, and really enjoyed the show tonight and everything that you're doing, Pete. Inspiration to us all, man.
I appreciate it, brother. Take it easy. Have a great night.
You too. Take care.
All right. And Eric wants to give a shout out here to Boom. Has several Dune series that are good. Grimm's good, and Basilisk as well. There you go. Yeah, there's a lot of great indie stuff running around, and it's just wherever. It's I don't know, man. It's like when I saw, and this is just going to be my closing thoughts. It's like when I saw the crazy conversation years ago about comics aren't diverse enough. To me, as soon as I hear that from anybody, it's like when someone says they're bored. It's like if you're bored, it's because you're boring. If you don't have any diversity in your life, it's because you made it that way. If your reading tastes seem to be one note and you don't have anything, It's because that's how you've been. You have to make the effort to discover it. It's out there, I promise you. But again, I was naive at that point. I thought that was a legitimate thing happening. Not that it's been a constructed thing to slowly manipulate people into telling the stories that they want them to tell, saying the words they want them to say, pushing the ideas they want them to push, and I should have known better. But I didn't. Now I do. I thought that it was one of those comics, man. It's just there's so many things out there. What is going on in our little fun industry, our little fun hobby? Where we're just telling stories and having fun, and we're all together in this. And sometimes we argue, but we argue over our favorite characters and our favorite stories. It rarely goes deeper than that. What happened? And lo and behold, we all know what happened. And it's a larger thing at play. But that's why the indie stuff is so important. The indie stuff is like the counter culture to this establishment kind of thing. And that's the other thing too, is that I see so many people that think that this stuff has always been around, right? But there was a time when the world didn't know what the hell Superman was. It didn't exist. Comic books? What the heck is that? You go to like 1805. Comic books? What? No one knows what the hell that is. So there's always various points in history where no one knows what the heck it is you're going to be talking about. Because no one made it yet. So it's important for us as creative individuals, as people who appreciate the arts, whatever it may be, to understand and acknowledge that it's like, people came along and created this thing known as culture. And if they could create it, then so can we. So can we. So every single day, think about that. Think about that. You can do it. If they did it, so can you. So can you. But it doesn't need to come from the top. It needs to come from the bottom, the ground level. It needs to come from the people making this stuff and expressing themselves and being creative and getting out there and sticking with it. And who knows, a generation or two that goes by could be very different. Are we going to stop, or are we going to keep doing it? We got to keep moving forward. Got to keep making stuff. Got to keep spreading the word. So anyway, everybody take it easy. Have a wonderful night. I'll be back. I'm going to take tomorrow night off. I'm going to focus on getting Alternaween stuff out. I'm probably like 20% through fulfillment. I spent a lot of time today at the storage getting the Alternaween bundles together. I'll pack up. I'll spend a day packing up tomorrow. I'm going to be on one show. I can't read what it says from here on my calendar. I'm going to be on someone's show at 1 o'clock tomorrow, Eastern time. But tomorrow night I'll be gone. I won't be here. I'll be packing up stuff. And then Thursday I'll be back. Thursday I'll be back with, I believe it is, Jay Ishiro Finney. So, I'll be back on with him on Thursday night at 9 o'clock Eastern. See you guys then. Everybody take it easy. Have a great night and an even better tomorrow. See you soon.